Only in Kentucky can a single county claim the title of marble capital of the Commonwealth and be home to the oldest freestanding log meeting house in the state. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today, I'm learning about Monroe County. Monroe sits right on the Tennessee border in the Pennyrile region, and the land here doesn't stay flat for long. As you move from west to east, the topography shifts dramatically. The Cumberland River is the big boss of the eastern section, where the ridges actually climb 300 feet straight up from the river basin. Today, the population of the county is about 11,000. The story of how people got here starts back in 1775 with Judge Richard Henderson and the Transylvania Land Company. They wanted to open up the territory, so they hired Daniel Boone to hack a path through the mountains, the famous Wilderness Road. Well, by the late 1780s, pioneers of English, Scottish, and Irish descent were trickling in from Virginia and North Carolina. They were looking for two things: the rich soil along the Cumberland and the endless stands of virgin timber. Life for those early settlers was a survival game played out on river currents and dirt trails. By 1801, a man named Moses Kirkpatrick found a route through the dense forest that everyone started calling Kirkpatrick's Trace, or perhaps just Old Trace Road. As people settled down, little communities started popping up near landmarks, giving us places like Fountain Run, Flippin, and Meshack Creek. In January of 1820, the Kentucky General Assembly officially put Monroe County on the map. They took 3/4 of the land from Barron County and the rest from Cumberland County, naming the whole thing after James Monroe, who was the President of the United States at the time. Now, funny enough, the officials picked Tompkinsville as the county seat to honor Daniel Tompkins, who was the vice president at the time. The land for the town belonged to Thomas B. Monroe, the president's cousin. And this actually all makes Monroe County the only place in the entire United States named for a president where the county seat is named for his vice president. Now, for the first 40 years, the county's borders were a bit like a jigsaw puzzle that wouldn't stay put. They gave up 20 square miles to help create Allen County in 1825, then grabbed 10 miles back from Cumberland County in 1830. They then lost another 10 miles to Metcalfe County in 1860, and the weirdest change happened in 1861 when lawmakers actually moved the border just to accommodate the geographic preference of a single property owner. In addition to tobacco crops, Monroe also leaned heavily into industrial hemp. Back then, Kentucky was the king of hemp, producing 3/4 of the entire national supply. Now, if you don't know, it was actually pretty brutal work, harvesting stalks by hand and using hand-cranked hemp brakes to get the fibers out of the rope and the fabric. We have to talk about the reality of that economy, though. It was built on the forced labor of enslaved African Americans. By 1850, there were 190 slave owners in the county, holding 831 people. By 1860, that number grew to 925. But Monroe County is also home to a powerful story of resistance. Around 1845, a wealthy landowner named William Howard decided he was done with the institution of slavery. He emancipated everyone he held and gave them tracts of his own land northwest of Tompkinsville. That land became Freetown, the first autonomous black community in the county. The people of Freetown didn't waste any time. They built the Freetown Church in 1848, and for 70 years, that one-room building was the heartbeat of that whole community, serving as both their church and their school. And today, it's known as the Mount Vernon AME Church. Then the Civil War arrived and tore the region apart. The biggest blow came in July of 1862 when Confederate Colonel John Hunt Morgan launched a massive raid. On the morning of July 9th, Morgan's cavalry swarmed Tompkinsville, catching about 300 Union soldiers from the 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry by surprise. After an artillery barrage and a cavalry charge, the Pennsylvania troops were routed. Morgan took 30 prisoners and burned everything: tents, wagons, and supplies. That win was actually what convinced the Confederate leadership that a full-scale invasion of Kentucky was possible later that summer. Of course, like everywhere else, the war left deep scars. In 1863, partisan violence led to the burning of the Monroe County Courthouse. A complete catastrophe because every property deed, marriage record, and probate document from the county's founding was turned to ash. You can still see the human toll at the Old Soldiers Cemetery, where 115 Union soldiers who died in skirmishes or from disease of that time are buried. After the war, the economy hit a wall. Without the forced labor of slavery and lacking the cash to buy modern machinery, the county shifted into tenant farming and sharecropping. Because they were so isolated from big industrial cities, recovery was a slow crawl. For a long time, your life in Monroe County was defined by the Cumberland River. It was the only way to get timber, livestock to markets down south. And because of that, towns like Martinsburg became busy ports. And you can still see the Dotson House there, built in the 1880s with its front door facing the river to welcome boat passengers. Even today, the Cumberland River Ferry, which started before 1808, is still running 24 hours a day. Really, the river's reign only ended when the highway system showed up in the mid-1900s. Suddenly, highways 163, 200, and 299 became the new lifelines for farmers and local factories. The county also had its share of black gold fever. There were small oil strikes in the 20s and 50s, but 1965 was the year of the big one. A well on the Jack Hayes farm in Sulphur Lick turned into a classic gusher, spraying 7,000 barrels a day. People went wild. Leases worth $700,000 were signed almost overnight. But the pressure died out just as fast as it started, because within weeks the well went dry and the oil boom vanished. Instead of heavy industry, Monroe pivoted to sewing. In the 1960s, garment factories started opening up everywhere. Monroe Manufacturing, and I'm going to mess this up, and Gamaliel and Key Manufacturing in Tompkinsville employed hundreds of people. What's interesting is this shift brought rural women into the workforce in a huge way. By 1969, 64% of the county's manufacturing workers were female. Globalization eventually moved those jobs overseas, of course, but it set the stage for the light manufacturing you can see in the county today. Now, the economy is less about crops and more about livestock and healthcare. An incredible 80% of agricultural money here comes from animals. We're talking 50,000 cattle and over 1.7 million chickens. But let's get to the fun stuff, like the fact that Monroe is the marble capital of the Commonwealth. And just to be clear, they're not playing with glass marbles in Monroe County. They play rolly hole. It's a strategic team game played with hand-carved flint spheres on specialized dirt yards. It was such a big deal, they built the Marble Club Superdome in Tompkinsville, the only enclosed marble stadium in the country. It's closed now, apparently, but still, fun fact. Then there's the Old Mulkey Meetinghouse. Built in 1804, it's the oldest freestanding log meetinghouse in the state. It's built in the shape of a cross and was the site of the 1809 heresy trials for John Mulkey. He broke away from strict Calvinism, a move that helped start the Restoration movement in south central Kentucky. Now, people say the cellar at Old Mulkey was used as a secret jail and a hiding spot for soldiers during the Civil War. And then, in the county folklore, there are the granny witches, folk healers and midwives like Molly Morgan, whose legends of herbal medicine still haunt the hollers of the Pennyrile. The names of the towns around here all have a story, as I mentioned. Sorry, apologies. Gamaliel is named after a Jewish leader from the 1st century. Fountain Run was originally Jimtown, named for a local named Jim Denton, before they renamed it for the natural springs. Flippin was named for a Revolutionary War vet. And Bakersville, believe it or not, was once called Slogo because a postal inspector got annoyed by how long it was taking to pick a name. Then you have Bug Tussle. The name literally implies a place so small that the bugs tussle in the dirt. It even got famous on the Beverly Hillbillies. You can see the history in the buildings, from the log cabins like the Moses Kirkpatrick House built in 1790 to the rare old brick house built by William Howard in 1805. By the time the 1900s rolled around, timber money was funding fancy Queen Anne homes like the Page House in Gamaliel with its ornate wraparound porches. Monroe has also sent its people to the highest offices. Benton McMillan went from here to become the governor of Tennessee, and Preston Leslie served as the governor of Kentucky in the 1870s before becoming the governor of the Montana Territory. But if you really want to see Monroe County come alive, you have to be in Tompkinsville on Labor Day weekend for the Watermelon Festival. The watermelons are everywhere. People are carving them, weighing them for prizes, and kids are competing in seed spitting contests. There's even a race where you have to carry a grease watermelon through an obstacle course. So, that's Monroe County. What'd I get wrong this time?